The champagne in her glass had gone warm an hour ago, but Lydia didn't dare put it down. To put it down meant admitting she had no reason to be here. The annual Mating Gala was supposed to be the happiest night of a wolf's life, unless you were the only one sitting at table 9, watching your fated mate laugh with the woman he chose instead of you. Everyone was waiting for Lydia Cross to break. They wanted the tears, the scene, the humiliation. But she wouldn't give them the satisfaction. She prepared to leave, to disappear into the shadows forever. She didn't know that in exactly 30 seconds, the most dangerous man in the hemisphere was about to walk through those doors, walk past the beauty queens and heiresses, and offer her a revenge darker and sweeter than she ever imagined. The ballroom of the Hotel Monteleone in New Orleans was suffocating. It smelled of expensive perfume, nervous sweat, and the overwhelming, cloying scent of pheromones. For the Silver Creek Pack, the Winter Gala wasn't just a party, it was a marketplace. Bloodlines were traded like stocks, and alliances were sealed with diamond rings. Lydia Cross sat at the edge of the room, her back rigid against the gold-painted chair. She wore a simple, thrifted emerald dress that she had tailored herself. It fit her curves perfectly, but in a sea of designer silk and custom sequins, she looked exactly like what she was, the Pack's charity case. "Look at her," a whisper floated from the table behind her. It was Sarah, the bater's daughter. "She's actually still sitting there. I would have run into traffic by now." Caleb didn't even look at her when he walked in. Another voice giggled. "Brutal." Lydia took a slow sip of her warm champagne. "Don't react," she told herself. "Reaction is currency, and you are bankrupt." Her eyes involuntarily flickered to the center of the room. Under the massive crystal chandelier, Caleb Miller, the future alpha of Silver Creek and the man the moon goddess had designed specifically for Lydia, was holding court. He looked dashing in a midnight blue tuxedo, his jawline sharp, his golden hair perfectly coiffed. Hanging on his arm was Jessica Tate. She was the daughter of a neighboring alpha, wealthy, loud, and possessing a pedigree that screamed power. Caleb had rejected Lydia privately 3 days ago. "It's simply business, Lydia," he had said, standing in her small apartment kitchen, checking his watch. "You're an orphan. You work in the Pack archives. You're a sweet girl. But I need an alpha female who brings territory and assets. Jessica brings the northern timberlands. You bring, well, you." He hadn't even the decency to feel pain. He had severed the mating bond with the emotional detachment of an accountant closing a ledger. Now Caleb raised his glass for a toast. The room went silent. "To the future of Silver Creek," Caleb announced, his voice booming with alpha command, "and to my beautiful partner, Jessica. May our union bring prosperity." Applause thundered. Lydia felt the phantom pain in her chest, the jagged edge where the bond used to be. She placed her glass down. It was time to go. She had made her appearance. She had proven she wasn't hiding. Now, she could go home, pack her bags, and leave this town before sunrise. She pushed her chair back. The scrape of wood against the floor echoed in a sudden, unnatural silence. But the silence wasn't for her. The heavy double doors at the entrance of the ballroom groaned open. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees instantly. The scent hit them first, not the flowery perfume of the gala, but something primal. Wood smoke, rain, and raw, unfiltered power. A man stepped into the light. He was massive. He stood well over 6'4", his shoulders straining against a black suit that cost more than the entire venue. He had hair the color of obsidian and eyes that looked like shattered ice. A scar ran through his left eyebrow, giving him a perpetual look of dangerous skepticism. The murmurs started instantly. "Is that him? Dominic Sterling, The Alpha of Blackwood. What is he doing here? He eats packs like ours for breakfast. Dominic Sterling. The name was a ghost story. He ran Sterling Enterprises, a multinational conglomerate that owned half the city, and he led the Blackwood Sovereign, a pack so large and ruthless they didn't attend galas. They bought the hotels hosting them. Caleb's smile faltered. He stepped forward, trying to look authoritative. Alpha Sterling, we weren't expecting you. To what do we owe the honor? Dominic didn't even look at Caleb. He didn't look at the trembling Jessica. He walked through the crowd, the sea of people parting instantly, terrified to even brush against his suit jacket. Lydia froze. He was walking toward the back, toward the shadows, toward her. Lydia's heart hammered against her ribs. She was nobody. She was the archive girl. She shouldn't be on the radar of a man who toppled governments. She instinctively lowered her gaze, a submission reflex ingrained in her since childhood. A pair of polished black dress shoes stopped in front of her. "Look at me," a voice commanded. It wasn't a shout. It was a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards and straight into her bones. Lydia looked up past the expensive suit, the broad chest, the sharp jaw, into those terrifying blue eyes. Up close, he was devastating. He was violence wrapped in civility. "Lydia Cross," he said. He knew her name. How did he know her name? "Yes, Alpha," she whispered. Dominic tilted his head, studying her. He looked at her simple dress, her pale face, and then glanced over his shoulder at Caleb, who was watching with a mix of fear and confusion. Dominic's lip curled in a sneer. "Stand up," Dominic said. Lydia stood, her legs shaking. She barely reached his chin. Dominic took a step closer, invading her personal space. The scent of him was overwhelming, intoxicating, and terrifying. He leaned down, his mouth hovering just beside her ear. To the room, it looked intimate. It looked like a lover's secret. "You're the one who fixed the tax ledgers for the Silver Creek pack 3 years ago," he murmured, his voice too low for anyone else to hear. "You found the embezzlement scheme the former Gamma was running." Lydia blinked, stunned. I just filed the paperwork. No one knows I did that." "I know," Dominic whispered. "I know everything. I need a brain like yours. And right now, judging by the way you're looking at that blonde idiot over there, you need a weapon." Lydia's breath hitched. "A weapon?" Dominic pulled back slightly, his eyes locking onto hers. "I am in a bind, Lydia. My board of directors is pushing for a mating union to stabilize my stock prices. They want me to marry a woman named Vanessa Carmichael. She is a viper. I need a shield. I need a fake mate until the merger closes in 3 months. You want me? I want someone who can act," he said, his voice hard. "I want someone who hates this pack as much as I do. I'm offering you a job. You play the part of my fated mate. You live in my penthouse. You get access to my accounts. And in return, you help me audit my internal division. And if I say no, then you walk out of here, go back to your sad apartment, and watch Caleb have babies with that woman." The cruelty of the truth stung, but it woke her up. Lydia looked past Dominic's shoulder. Caleb was whispering to Jessica, laughing nervously. They thought she was nothing. Lydia looked back at the giant Alpha King. "What do I have to do?" Dominic smirked. It was a terrifying expression. He extended his hand, palm up. "Take my hand," he said, loud enough for the room to hear this time. "And act like you're mine." Lydia hesitated for only a fraction of a second. She reached out and placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, rough, and engulfed hers completely. Dominic turned to the room, pulling Lydia against his side, his arm wrapped around her waist, possessing her, claiming her. The gasps from the crowd were audible. "Caleb Miller," Dominic called out, his voice silencing the room. Caleb swallowed hard. "Yes, Alpha Sterling." "You have terrible taste," Dominic said coldly. "But thank you for it. You left the rarest gem in the dirt, so I could pick her up." He looked down at Lydia, his eyes softening with a fake adoration that looked startlingly real. "Ready to go home, love?" Lydia channeled every ounce of pain, every ounce of rejection, and turned it into performance art. She smiled up at him. "Yes, Dominic. Take me home." He swept her out of the ballroom, leaving the Silver Creek pack in a stunned, deathly silence. The moment the valet closed the door of the black-armored SUV, the warmth vanished. Dominic Sterling dropped her hand as if it burned him. "Drive," he ordered the driver. The partition slid up, sealing them in the back. Lydia pressed herself against the leather door, putting as much distance between them as possible. The interior of the car smelled of new leather and aged scotch. The adrenaline that had carried her out of the ballroom was fading, replaced by the cold reality of what she had just done. She had just left with the most feared wolf on the East Coast. Dominic pulled a tablet from the seat pocket and began scrolling, instantly disengaged. "Stop shaking," he said without looking up. "I don't eat archivists. Too dusty." Lydia straightened her spine. "I'm not shaking. I'm vibrating with rage." Dominic paused. He glanced at her, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "Oh? Rage at me? Or at the blonde idiot?" "Both," Lydia snapped. "You humiliated him, yes. But you also just put a target on my back the size of Texas. Caleb is petty. He won't like being upstaged." "Caleb is an ant," Dominic said dismissively, "and you are now under the protection of the Blackwood Sovereign. If he looks at you wrong, I'll buy his pack debt and evict him from his ancestral home." He tapped the screen of the tablet and handed it to her. "The contract," he said. Lydia took the device. It was a 20-page non-disclosure agreement and employment contract. "Read it," he commanded. "But here are the headlines. 1. You live in my estate, Blackwood Manor. 2. We appear in public 3 times a week. Galas, dinners, charity events. We are madly in love. We are fated." "And in private?" Lydia asked, scanning the legalese. "In private, you stay out of my way," Dominic said, his voice dropping to a gravelly low. "I am a busy man, Lydia. I don't do romance. I don't do feelings. I had a mate once. She died. I'm not looking for a replacement." Lydia felt a pang of unexpected sympathy, but she shoved it down. "Understood. Strictly business. 3, Dominic continued. You have full access to the Sterling Enterprises financial archives. I suspect my CFO, a man named Roger Banks, is leaking funds to a rival pack. You have the forensics. Find the leak, plug it, and I'll pay you $5 million at the end of the 90 days. Lydia choked on air. $5 million? Consider it hazard pay, Dominic said, looking out the window as the city lights blurred by. My world isn't like Silver Creek, Lydia. People don't just gossip in my world, they assassinate. You need to be sharp. I can handle myself, Lydia said quietly. Dominic looked at her then, really looked at her. He scanned her face, taking in the intelligence behind her hazel eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. We'll see, he muttered. We're going to my penthouse in the city tonight. Tomorrow we go to the manor. You'll need new clothes. That, he gestured vaguely at her emerald dress, is charming, but it looks like you made it out of curtains. I made it out of vintage silk, she corrected him, offended, and it fits better than that tent Jessica was wearing. Dominic let out a short, sharp sound. It might have been a laugh. True, But you're the alpha female of Blackwood now. You need to look like you own the curtains, not wear them. The car slowed as it pulled into the private underground garage of the Sterling Tower. Security guards with earpieces were already waiting. As the door opened, Dominic turned to her. His face shifted. The cold CEO vanished, and the warm, possessive lover returned. He reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers grazed her neck, sending a jolt of electricity down her spine that had nothing to do with acting. "Showtime, Lydia," he whispered. "There are paparazzi outside the garage entrance. Act like you adore me." Lydia took a deep breath. She thought of Caleb's dismissive face. She thought of the years of being ignored. She grabbed Dominic's lapels and pulled him down, pressing her lips to his jawline, just inches from his mouth. It was bold. It was reckless. "Don't worry, Alpha," she whispered against his skin. "I'm a very good liar." Dominic stiffened, surprised by her boldness. For a second, his scent flared, spiced wood and desire, before he clamped it down. He wrapped his arm around her waist and led her out of the car into the flashing lights of the waiting cameras. But as they walked toward the elevator, Lydia realized something terrifying. Acting like she was in love with Dominic Sterling was going to be easy. The hard part was going to be reminding herself that it was all a lie. The transition from Lydia Cross, unseen archive mouse, to Lydia Cross, consort to the Wolf King, didn't happen gently. It happened with the violent efficiency of a corporate hostile takeover. The morning after the gala, Lydia woke up in a bed larger than her entire previous apartment. The sheets were 800-thread Count Egyptian cotton, cool against her skin, smelling faintly of cedar and rain. Dominic's scent. She sat up, the silence of the penthouse deafening. It was a glass box in the sky, overlooking the sprawling metropolis. It was beautiful, expensive, and utterly devoid of warmth. It was a perfect reflection of its owner. She found Dominic in the kitchen, already dressed in a charcoal suit, reading a financial newspaper on a tablet. He didn't look up when she entered, dressed in one of his oversized tailored shirts she'd found in the closet. "Coffee is on the counter," he said, his voice flat. "Black. We leave for the manor in an hour. Pack your things." "Oh wait, you don't have anything." Lydia bristled, pouring the coffee. It was bitter, just how she imagined he liked it. "Good morning to you too, sunshine. And for the record, I have things. They are just currently elsewhere." Dominic finally looked up over the rim of his tablet. His ice-blue eyes scanned her, lingering for a fraction of a second on her bare legs beneath the shirt before snapping back to her face. "Your apartment lease has been terminated. Your belongings have been moved to Blackwood Manor. Your old life is gone, Lydia. Stop looking in the rear-view mirror." The cruelty of it stole her breath. "You had no right to—" "I have every right," he cut in, his tone brokering no argument. "You signed the contract. You belong to Blackwood now, and Blackwood protects its assets. Your old apartment building had substandard security and a mold problem. You live in a fortress now." An hour later, they were in a helicopter, heading out of the city toward the dense, ancient forests of the North Territory. Blackwood Manor wasn't a house. It was a statement. Built of grey stone and dark timber, it rose from the forest floor like a jagged tooth. It was massive, intimidating, and isolated. As the helicopter landed on the private pad, Lydia saw staff lined up. 12 people, standing rigid. "They hate me already," Lydia murmured, looking down at the welcoming committee that looked more like a firing squad. "They don't hate you," Dominic said, unbuckling his seatbelt. "They fear me, and by extension they fear you. Use that." Leading the staff was Mrs. Gable, a severe woman with iron-grey hair, pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She stood next to Marcus, the head of security, a man whose neck was wider than Lydia's waist. "Alpha," Mrs. Gable bowed, then turned her sharp eyes to Lydia. There was no warmth there, only appraisal. "Miss Cross, welcome to Blackwood. Lydia will be staying in the East Wing, Master Suite," Dominic ordered, striding past them without breaking stride. "Get her settled, and burn whatever clothes you brought from her apartment. The stylist arrives at noon." The stylist was a team of 3 terrified women from the city's most exclusive boutique. For 4 hours, Lydia was poked, prodded, and measured. Dominic didn't participate, but his presence was felt. Every item selected had to be approved by him via video link from his office. He rejected soft fabrics, florals, and pastels. "No," his voice boomed over the speaker as Lydia modeled a pale pink sundress. "She looks like a confectionery. She needs edges. Put her in the black Alexander McQueen." By the end of the day, Lydia looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. Her soft brown hair was cut into a sharp, angled bob that framed her jaw. She wore tailored trousers that cost more than a car, silk blouses that felt like water against her skin, and stilettos that were weapons in their own right. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked dangerous. "Better," Dominic said, leaning against the doorway of her massive walk-in closet that evening. He held 2 tumblers of amber liquid. He handed her one. "Scotch, aged 25 years. Drink it. You'll need the fortitude." Lydia took a sip, fighting the urge to cough as the fire burned her throat. "Fortitude for what?" "For the work," Dominic said, gesturing for her to follow him. He led her not to a bedroom, but to his private study, the nerve center of Sterling Enterprises. It was the only messy room in the house. Monitors covered one wall, displaying real-time stock tickers from Tokyo, London, and New York. Tables were buried under mountains of paper. "This is the real battlefield," Dominic said, the persona of the cool Alpha King, dropping to reveal an exhausted, obsessed workaholic. "My CFO, Roger Banks. He's smart. He's been cooking the books for 6 months, bleeding me dry slowly so I wouldn't notice. I need you to find the leak." Lydia set down her scotch and rolled up the sleeves of her $1,000 silk blouse. She looked at the chaos of data. This was her territory. For the next week, Lydia barely saw the sun. She lived in the study. Dominic would come in and out, sometimes bringing her food, sometimes just watching her work in silence. They fell into a strange rhythm. They weren't lovers, they weren't friends, but they were co-conspirators in a high-stakes war. Lydia was brilliant. She found patterns in the chaos that Dominic's expensive external auditors had missed. On Thursday night, at 3 a.m., she found it. "Dominic," she whispered, her voice raspy from lack of use. He was asleep on a leather couch in the corner. He was instantly awake, alert, his eyes clearing in a second. He moved to her side, his scent wrapping around her, thick with fatigue and raw power. "What is it?" "Did you nail Banks?" "Yes. He's funneling money through Shell, companies in the Cayman Islands. It's classic, lazy laundering. I have the paper trail." "Good girl," Dominic breathed, his hand instinctively resting on her shoulder. The praise warmed her more than the scotch ever could. "But Dominic, I found something else." Lydia pulled up a different spreadsheet on the main monitor. "These aren't from banks. These are automated payments from your personal, private holdings, not the company accounts." Dominic frowned, leaning closer. His chest brushed against her back, sending a jolt through her. "What payments? I authorize everything." "Not these. They are small, $5,000 a month, going back 12 years. They go to a blind trust hidden behind 3 layers of LLCs. 12 years ago, Dominic's voice went cold. The air in the room seemed to freeze. That was the year Sarah died. The payment started 2 weeks after her funeral, Lydia said quietly. Dominic, I traced the trust's beneficiary address. It's a P.O. box in Silver Creek, my hometown. Dominic stared at the screen, his jaw working. The silence stretched, heavy and dangerous. Why was the Alpha King sending money to her tiny, insignificant hometown for over a decade? Before he could answer, Marcus burst into the room, his face pale. Alpha, we have a situation at the main gate, Dominic growled, the sound vibrating deep in his chest. I told you I am not to be disturbed unless the building is on fire. It's not fire, sir, Marcus said, swallowing hard. It's an Alpha from Silver Creek, Caleb Miller. He's demanding to see Miss Cross. He says you kidnapped her. Dominic didn't just get angry. He became an atmospheric event. The temperature in the study plummeted. His eyes, usually icy blue, darkened to a turbulent navy. He's at my gate, Dominic said, the words low and terrifyingly calm. Accusing me of abduction. Lydia stood up, her heart pounding. Dominic, wait. He's an idiot. Let me handle. You stay here, Dominic snarled, turning on his heel. Marcus, keep her in this room. If she tries to leave, sedate her. Dominic, Lydia yelled, but he was already gone, a storm cloud moving toward the front entrance. Lydia didn't wait to be sedated. She glared at Marcus. If you touch me, I will rearrange his personal tax filings so he owes the IRS $50 million by Monday. Move. Marcus, terrifying head of security, weighed his options and wisely stepped aside. Lydia ran to the foyer, just as Dominic threw open the massive oak front doors. Down the long, winding driveway, illuminated by the security lights, stood Caleb Miller outside the iron gates. He looked small, wet from the light rain, and ridiculously out of his depth. Lydia! Caleb shouted when he saw her emerge behind Dominic. Lydia, are you okay? Did he hurt you? The pack is worried sick. Jessica is devastated. Lydia almost laughed out loud. Jessica was probably devastated that Lydia was currently wearing diamond stud earrings worth more than Jessica's car. Dominic stalked toward the gate. He didn't open it. He just stood on the other side, a predator observing prey. You are trespassing on sovereign soil, boy. Dominic's voice boomed through the night air. Give me one reason why I shouldn't let the guard dogs use you as a chew toy. I'm here for my pack member, Caleb yelled, trying to sound authoritative, but failing miserably. You can't just take people, Sterling. Lydia is vulnerable. She doesn't belong in your world. She's an archivist, for goddess's sake. Send her out, and we'll forget this happened. Dominic laughed. It was a cruel, jagged sound. She was yours for 3 years, Caleb, and you threw her away like garbage because she didn't come with a timber deed. Now you want her back because I picked her up? You're pathetic. Dominic gripped the iron bars of the gate. The metal groaned under the pressure. His knuckles turned white. His wolf was close to the surface. Lydia could feel the waves of aggression rolling off him. If he shifted here, he would tear Caleb apart. Lydia stepped out into the rain, walking past Dominic to the gate. Lydia, thank God, Caleb breathed, reaching a hand through the bars. Come on, let's go home. This guy is a psycho. Lydia looked at his hand, then up at his handsome, shallow face. She remembered the kitchen where he broke her heart. I am home, Caleb, Lydia said, her voice steady, cold. Caleb blinked, confused. What? No, you're confused. He's manipulated you. Look at you. Your hair, those clothes. This isn't you, Lydia. No, Lydia said, grasping the bars of the gate, her new diamond bracelet catching the light. The girl in the archives who let you treat her like a placeholder? That wasn't me. That was just someone waiting to wake up. Dominic didn't kidnap me, Caleb. He chose me, which is more than you ever had the guts to do. She turned to Dominic, whose eyes were blazing with a strange mix of fury and pride. She placed a hand heavily on his forearm. The muscle was rock hard, vibrating with tension. "Darling," she said, pitching her voice loud enough for Caleb to hear. "Come inside. It's raining, and you know how grumpy you get when your suit gets wet. Let the boy go back to his Timberlands." Dominic stared down at her. The feral look in his eyes slowly receded, replaced by the calculated mask of the CEO. He covered her hand with his own. "As you wish, my love," Dominic said smoothly. He looked back at Caleb one last time. "If I see you on my land again, I won't kill you. I'll buy the bank that holds the mortgage on your Alpha's estate and evict your entire bloodline. Get lost." They turned and walked back toward the manor, leaving a stunned, soaking wet Caleb in the dark. Once inside the heavy doors, Dominic released her arm. He didn't look at her. He seemed shaken by his own loss of control. "You shouldn't have come out there," he muttered. "You were going to kill him," Lydia said. "He insulted what is mine." Dominic stopped, realizing what he said. The silence grew thick. "What is contractually mine?" he corrected stiffly. "Go to bed, Dominic," Lydia said softly, exhausted. "We have a gala tomorrow." The annual Sovereign Charity Ball was not a party. It was a battlefield where the weapons were passive-aggressive compliments and the armor was couture. It was the first public unveiling of Dominic and Lydia. Lydia wore a dress made of liquid silver that clung to every curve, with a slit up the thigh that was borderline scandalous. Dominic wore a tuxedo, tailored within an inch of its life. Together they looked like royalty. The moment they entered the grand ballroom in the city, all eyes were on them. The whispers were like a hive of angry bees. "That's her, the nobody from Silver Creek. Look at that dress. He must be spending a fortune on her. I give it a month. He's still grieving Sarah." Dominic placed a possessive hand on the small of her back. "Smile," he murmured into her ear. "They want blood. Don't give it to them." They navigated the room, a shark moving through a school of fish. Dominic introduced her to senators, oil tycoons, and rival alphas. Lydia played her part perfectly, demure but sharp, smiling adoringly at Dominic at regular intervals. Then the crowd parted for Vanessa Carmichael. Vanessa was the woman Dominic's board wanted him to marry. She was tall, statuesque, with blonde hair sleeked back and a red dress that looked like it was painted on. She came from old werewolf royalty. Her bloodline was impeccable, and her ambition was boundless. "Dominic," Vanessa purred, approaching them with a predatory smile. She ignored Lydia entirely. "It's been too long. The board was hoping you'd attend the retreat next month." "Vanessa," Dominic nodded curtly. "You've met my mate, Lydia." Vanessa finally turned her gaze to Lydia. It was like being scanned by an X-ray machine looking for flaws. "Oh yes, the surprise," Vanessa smiled thinly. "It's so terribly romantic, isn't it? Finding your fated mate in such humble circumstances. Tell me, dear, are you finding the adjustment difficult? It must be overwhelming, moving from sorting dusty old paper to dining with heads of state. Do you even know which fork to use for the fish course?" It was a blatant attempt to humiliate her, to highlight her low status. People nearby stopped talking, waiting for the archivist to crumble. Dominic stiffened beside her, ready to intervene. Lydia squeezed his arm subtly, stopping him. "My turn." Lydia smiled sweetly at Vanessa. "It is an adjustment, Vanessa. But history is so fascinating, isn't it? For instance, in my dusty papers, I was reading about the Carmichael Pack history just yesterday. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. Oh? Yes. Fascinating stuff. Did you know your great-grandfather didn't actually inherit his alpha title? According to the records from the 1920s, he won it in a poker game from a drunken beta. And the family fortune wasn't timber. It was bootlegged whiskey run across the Canadian border. So really, we both come from humble beginnings. Mine were just more legal. The silence that fell over the group was absolute. Vanessa turned a shade of crimson that clashed horribly with her dress. Dominic made a sound that was half cough, half laugh. He pulled Lydia tighter against his side. Darling, you mustn't bore Vanessa with history lessons. She prefers fiction. Shall we dance? He swept Lydia onto the dance floor before Vanessa could recover. Dominic held her close as the orchestra began a waltz. For the first time since they met, his smile reached his eyes. You, he murmured, looking down at her with genuine admiration, are lethal. I think Vanessa is going to need therapy after that. I did my homework, Lydia said, feeling a flush of adrenaline and pride. It's what you pay me for. Is it? Dominic's voice dropped lower. He pulled her closer, so there was no air between them. The scent of him, cedar, rain, and raw male power, was intoxicating. They moved together perfectly. The lie felt dangerously real. Lydia looked up into his ice-blue eyes and saw heat there. Desire. You looked incredible tonight, he whispered, his hand sliding up her back to her nape, his thumb tracing her jawline. Standing at the gate in the rain defending me. And tonight, taking down Vanessa. You are extraordinary, Lydia. He leaned down. The world outside the dance floor faded. He was going to kiss her. Not for the cameras. Not for the contract. But because he wanted to. Lydia's breath hitched. She leaned up, closing her eyes, ready to fall into the abyss. His lips brushed hers, a feather-light touch that sent voltage through her veins. Then he froze. Lydia opened her eyes. Dominic was staring over her head, his expression shattered. He was looking at a woman in the crowd, a woman with dark, curly hair, laughing. Sarah, he breathed. He ripped himself away from Lydia as if she were contagious. The warmth vanished instantly. Dominic? Lydia whispered, hurt pulsing through her chest. The woman turned. It wasn't Sarah, just someone with similar hair. But the damage was done. The ghost had returned. Dominic looked down at Lydia, his eyes completely dead again. The walls were back, up, higher than ever. Wait in the car, he ordered harshly, turning his back on her and walking into the crowd. We're leaving. Lydia stood alone on the dance floor in her silver dress, surrounded by hundreds of people, feeling more isolated than she ever had in her archives. The contract was crystal clear again. She was a placeholder for a ghost, and she had just made the fatal mistake of starting to fall for the man who hired her, to play pretend. The drive back from the gala was a lesson in silence. Dominic sat on the far side of the leather seat, staring out the window at the passing city lights, radiating a coldness that made the air conditioning redundant. He had built the wall back up, brick by brick, sealing himself inside with his ghost. Lydia didn't try to breach it. The almost kiss on the dance floor had peeled back a layer of her own heart she wasn't ready to examine. She felt foolish. She was the hired help, falling for the master of the house. It was a cliché, and Lydia Cross hated clichés. For the next 3 days, Dominic vanished. He went to the Sterling Tower in the city before she woke up and returned long after she was asleep. Lydia channeled her heartbreak into the only thing she could control: the numbers. She buried herself in the study, hunting with the traitor. She stopped eating meals in the dining room and survived on coffee and adrenaline. On Tuesday afternoon, the digital trail finally ended. Lydia was cross-referencing the Cayman Island shell companies with the internal login logs of the Sterling mainframe. She found a ghost user, someone who had root access to the system but didn't appear on the official payroll. The user had been siphoning millions, not just recently, but for years. She traced the IP address of the ghost user. It wasn't coming from the CFO's office. It wasn't Roger Banks. The signal was coming from the West Wing of Blackwood Manor. Lydia froze. The West Wing was the residence of the Pack Beta, Dominic's second-in-command and cousin, Bennett Sterling. Bennett, the charming, smiling man who had welcomed her with a fruit basket on her first day. Bennett, who Dominic trusted with his life. She needed physical proof. She knew Dominic kept hard copies of the senior staff's employment contracts and biometric keys in the hidden wall safe in the study. She knew the combination because Dominic had given it to her on day 1, 10/24/18, the date he became Alpha. Lydia walked to the oil painting of the forest landscape, swung it open, and punched in the code. The heavy steel door clicked open. She shuffled through the files. Banks, Gable, Sterling, Bennett. She pulled Bennett's file. It was thick. As she flipped through it, a piece of paper fell out from a different folder that had been wedged behind it. The folder was labeled Project Cross. Lydia's hands went numb. She dropped Bennett's file and picked up the one bearing her own last name. She opened it. The first page was a photo of her. Not a recent one. It was a photo of her at 16, walking out of high school in Silver Creek. She turned the page. A photo of her at 19, working at the library. A photo of her at 22, moving into her first apartment. There were bank transfer receipts, monthly payments made to a guardian trust that had paid for her grandmother's nursing home care until she passed. Lydia had always been told it was a government grant. It wasn't. It was Dominic Sterling. "What are you doing?" The voice was low and dangerous. Lydia spun around. Dominic stood in the doorway of the study. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder, but his eyes were fixed on the folder in her hands. Lydia didn't cower. The shock was rapidly heating into a fury that burned hotter than fear. "Project Cross?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I'm not a staff member. I'm a project." Dominic walked into the room, tossing his jacket on a chair. "Put the file down, Lydia." "You knew me," she accused, backing away as he advanced. "You didn't pick me at the gala because I was an underdog. You didn't pick me because of my brain. You've been watching me for 10 years. I have been protecting you for 10 years. Dominic roared, his composure cracking. He stopped, running a hand through his dark hair. "Your parents. They weren't just random rogues who died in a car accident, Lydia. They were the Grey Walkers. They were mercenaries. 12 years ago, I was kidnapped by a rival pack. I was 22. They were going to execute me. Your parents broke me out. They took a bullet for me. Both of them died so I could get back to the Blackwood line." Lydia stared at him, her world tilting on its axis. "My parents saved you?" "I owed them a life debt," Dominic said, his voice rough. "On their deathbed, I promised them I would watch over you. I promised I would ensure you were safe. But I couldn't approach you. If my enemies knew you were important to me, you would have been a target. So you watched me from a distance," Lydia whispered, "like a stalker, like a guardian." "And the gala?" she asked, tears stinging her eyes. "The contract, was that protection too, or was that just convenient?" Dominic looked away. "I needed a fake mate. You needed protection from Caleb's rejection. It seemed efficient. Efficient, Lydia repeated, the word tasting like ash. That's all I am to you. A liability you're managing, an asset you're protecting, a debt you're paying off. She threw the file at his chest, papers scattered across the floor like dead leaves. For a moment, I thought you actually saw me, Lydia said, her voice breaking. But you were just seeing a ghost of a debt. You were seeing my parents. You don't know me at all, Dominic. You just know my file. Lydia, stop. Dominic stepped forward, reaching for her. No, she recoiled. The deal is off. I found your traitor. It's Bennett. He's the one stealing your money. Check the logs. My part of the bargain is done. Keep your $5 million. I'd rather be poor and invisible than be a charity case for the Alpha King. She stormed past him. Dominic grabbed her arm, his grip iron tight. You cannot leave, he growled. Bennett is dangerous. If he knows you found him— I don't care! Lydia wrenched her arm free. I'm going back to Silver Creek. I'm going back to being nobody. At least when I was nobody, my life was my own. She ran out of the study, down the hall, and out the heavy front doors into the night. She didn't look back. If she had, she would have seen the most powerful man in the world sink to his knees amidst the scattered papers, looking utterly defeated. Lydia didn't make it to the main road. She had called a ride-share service from her phone as she marched down the long, winding driveway of the estate. The app said the driver was 2 minutes away. A black sedan pulled up to the curb just outside the main gate. Lydia opened the back door and slid in, grateful for the warmth. Station, please, and hurry. No problem, Miss Cross, the driver said. The locks engaged with a heavy thud. Lydia frowned. She hadn't given the driver her name. The app just said, passenger. She looked at the rear-view mirror. The driver wasn't looking at the road. He was watching her, and he was smiling. You're not the Uber, Lydia whispered. Afraid not, the driver said. He turned around. It was Caleb Miller. Lydia lunged for the door handle, but it was child-locked. She pounded on the glass. Let me out! Caleb, are you insane? Dominic will kill you! Dominic is busy dealing with the mess you left in his study. A smooth voice came from the front passenger seat. Lydia hadn't noticed the second man in the shadows. He turned his head. It was Dominic Sterling. He looked as polished as ever, wearing a designer suit, but his eyes held a shark-like emptiness. You found the Cayman routing numbers, didn't you, Lydia? Bennett asked, pleasantly, as if asking about the weather. I got an alert the moment you accessed the route. Directory. Very clever. Too clever. You're stealing from your own family, Lydia spat. I'm taking what should be mine, Bennett snapped, his mask slipping. I'm older than Dominic. I'm smarter. But because his father was the Alpha, he gets the throne. I built Sterling Enterprises while he was busy grieving his dead mate. I deserve a payout. Where are we going? Lydia demanded, forcing her voice to stay steady. Somewhere quiet, Caleb said, looking nervous. Just to talk, Lydia. Bennett just needs the encryption keys. Shut up, Caleb, Bennett ordered. Drive. They took her to the old iron mill, a rusted, abandoned industrial complex on the edge of the river, miles from the city limits. The noise of the rushing water drowned out everything. They dragged her into the main warehouse. It smelled of rust and damp rot. They tied her to a metal chair in the center of the vast, empty floor. Bennett paced in front of her, holding a tablet. Caleb stood by the door, looking increasingly nauseous. Here is the situation, Lydia, Bennett said. You froze the accounts when you flagged them. To unfreeze them so I can transfer the balance to a secure server, I need the admin override code. You are the only one who has logged in as admin in the last 24 hours. Give me the code." "Go to hell," Lydia said. Bennett sighed. He walked over and backhanded her across the face. The force of the blow snapped Lydia's head back. She tasted copper. Her cheek throbbed. "Hey!" Caleb stepped forward. "Bennett, you said no violence. You said we just scare her." "She's not scared enough," Bennett sneered. He grabbed Lydia's chin, forcing her to look at him. "The code, Lydia. Or the next time, I won't use my hand. I'll use my claws." Lydia's head was spinning, but her mind was racing. She needed time. Dominic didn't know where she was. No one knew. She had to save herself. She looked at Caleb. He was the weak link. "Caleb," she rasped, spitting blood onto the concrete floor. "Do you know what the penalty is for treason against a sovereign alpha?" Caleb flinched. I'm not committing treason. I'm just helping Bennett recover his assets." "He's lying to you, Caleb," Lydia said, her voice dripping with the same manipulative honey she had used on Vanessa at the gala. "He's not going to share the money with you. Once he gets the code, he's going to leave the country, and he's going to leave you here. With me. Dead." "Shut up!" Bennett roared, raising his hand again. "Think about it," Lydia shouted, looking straight at her ex-mate. "Why did he bring you? He needs a fall guy. When Dominic finds us, and he will find us, who do you think Bennett is going to blame? The rogue alpha from Silver." "Creek!" Caleb looked at Bennett, panic rising in his eyes. "Bennett, is that true? You said the jet was for both of us." "She's manipulating you, you idiot," Bennett yelled. "She's a liar. That's what she does." "I'm an auditor, Caleb," Lydia pressed. "I follow the money." Bennett booked a single seat on a charter flight to Brazil, departing in 2 hours. Just one seat. It was a lie, a complete guess. But Lydia knew men like Bennett. They didn't share. Caleb pulled a gun from his waistband, a clumsy, shaking movement, and pointed it not at Lydia, but halfway between her and Bennett. "Show me the flight manifest, Bennett." Bennett froze. "Put the gun away, Caleb." "Show me!" Caleb screamed. While they argued, a sound pierced the roar of the river outside. It wasn't a siren. It was a howl. It was a sound so deep, so primal, that the corrugated iron roof of the warehouse rattled. It was the sound of pure, unadulterated rage. It was the call of the Alpha King hunting his mate. Bennett's face went pale. "He's here." "I told you," Lydia whispered, a bloody smile spreading across her face. "Now you're both dead." The massive metal doors of the warehouse didn't open. They exploded inward. Twisted metal flew across the room. Through the dust and debris, a beast charged. It wasn't a man. Dominic had shifted. He was a massive, midnight black wolf, standing nearly 5 feet tall at the shoulder. His eyes were burning blue fire. He moved with a speed that defied physics. Caleb screamed and fired the gun blindly. The bullet pinged harmlessly off a steel beam. The black wolf ignored Caleb. He launched himself straight at Bennett. Bennett tried to shift, his bones cracking, but he was too slow. Dominic hit him like a freight train. The impact threw Bennett 20 feet across the room, smashing him into a stack of old machinery. Caleb dropped the gun and fell to his knees, covering his head. "I surrender! I surrender!" The black wolf turned his massive head toward Lydia. He saw the blood on her lip. He saw the ropes binding her wrists. A low, vibrating growl emanated from his chest, shaking the floor. He stepped toward her, the violence in his eyes receding, replaced by a desperate, whining concern. But before he could reach her, Bennett, broken, bleeding, but not dead, pulled a detonator from his pocket. "If I don't get the money," Bennett wheezed, blood bubbling past his lips, "no one gets the girl." He pressed the button. Charges planted on the support pillars blew. The roof of the warehouse groaned and began to collapse directly over Lydia's head. "Dominic!" Lydia screamed. The wolf didn't hesitate. He didn't run for the exit. He lunged over Lydia, using his massive body as a shield, covering her completely as tons of concrete and steel rained down upon them, burying them in darkness. Dust clogged the air, thick and suffocating. But Lydia wasn't crushed. She was encased in a cocoon of warmth. Above her, a steel beam rested precariously on Dominic's broad, human back. He had shifted back to maximize the space, bracing his body like a pillar to keep the debris from crushing her. "Dominic!" she wept, touching his face in the pitch blackness. Blood trickled from his hairline. "I've got you!" he rasped, his voice strained with the effort of holding up tons of concrete. "I promised your parents I'd protect you, but I'm keeping you because I love you. Do you hear me, Lydia? Not the contract." "You." "I hear you," she sobbed, pressing her forehead to his. "Now get us out of here so I can yell at you properly." It took 2 hours for Marcus and the security team to dig them out. Bennett didn't survive the blast. His greed became his tomb. Caleb, cowardly to the end, had fled into the night, never to be seen in the territories again. A week later, Lydia sat on the terrace of Blackwood Manor. Her bruises were fading. Dominic walked out, holding 2 glasses of that terrible, expensive scotch. He sat beside her, looking out over his empire, their empire. He placed a velvet box on the table. Inside wasn't a diamond, but a simple band of braided gold, an old pack tradition. "No more acting," Dominic said, his blue eyes clear and vulnerable. "No more debts to the past. I want the archivist who outsmarted my enemies. I want the woman who defended me in the rain. Be mine, Lydia. For real." Lydia took the ring. She didn't just see a CEO or a king. She saw the man who had held up the world for her. "I'm not acting anymore, Alpha," she smiled, sliding the ring onto her finger. "I'm yours." And that is the story of how Lydia Cross went from the rejected girl at table 9 to the queen of the Blackwood Sovereign. She proved that sometimes a rejection is actually a divine redirection to something far more powerful. Dominic didn't just save her. She saved him from a life of cold isolation. Together, they built a legacy that no one in Silver Creek ever dared to challenge again. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, romance, and high-stakes drama, please give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. What did you think of Bennett's betrayal? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.